ko Arangi tuku monga, ko Rangatata tuku awa, ko Ionic tuku waka, ko Kerry tuku inga, ke Browns Bay aho e noho ana. Kia ora, kia orana, whakalofa lahi atu, malo alei, bola vanaka, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome everyone to our second Tech Tok. It's wonderful to have you, and thanks for coming along on such a dismal day. Hopefully wherever you are around the country, it's a lot better than it is here in Auckland. Just to reiterate what Bernie has said, we are recording today's session for those who can't attend. We obviously can't share it out to all student teachers because we don't have their addresses or anything like that. So it will be available through the YouTube channel. It will be available if people contact me or contact TENZ, we can make it available, and it will also be going into the resource library. So it's something you will be able to come back to as many times as you like now that you're a TENZ member. If you feel uncomfortable with regards to being on the video, please just keep your camera off. So we're really lucky to be able to welcome Jamie. Jamie's a design engineer for Paku, and I saw the product and spoke to some of the people on the TENZ Council and said, this is amazing, this is technology in action. So we've reached out to Jamie and said, could he please come along and talk to us? And it seemed a really good time to come today, even though it was short notice for him, because I thought we're talking gardening, we're talking hydroponics, and Kerry is an inventor and a designer of this amazing tool. I've got a little blurb here. He's one of Aotearoa's leading product design engineers. He's designed products in many industries, including healthcare, agriculture, consumer goods. His design is driven by user-centered research, and it focuses on sustainability. He's the lead design engineer at New Zealand design studio Formway. So I'll hand it over to you, Jamie.
No problem. Kia ora. Thanks, Kerry. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to everyone at TENZ. And like you said, my background, I'm a design engineer. I have a Bachelor of Technology from Massey University, and worked in various places around the world, currently in Wellington at Formway Design. I also have another business called Paku that I founded with a longtime friend of mine, an artist named Johnson Witihira. And what that company is called is Paku, and we've created these tools. So they are what we call our Paku Toki, our Paku Timor, and they are a scaled down version of customary Māori gardening tools for children. So am I able to just share screen over top? Yeah, I am. Cool. So how did Paku start? Like I said, my friend Johnson, he was at his kohanga reo with his son. This is his son, Ahikaroa. And he just noticed that in the kohanga setting, all the kids loved being in the sandpit, out in the mara, but all of the tools, they were of European origin. So they were, what you'd expect, spades and other trowels, things like that. And he just remembered from, he has a doctorate in Māori design, PhD. And he's like, well, he's seen tools that were made by Māori for these very purposes, and why don't we have them today? Where are the tools that are that take inspiration from Mātauranga Māori? And so he took this to me. He was around having kai at my house with my family, and he just said, well, why don't we have these things? And well, I'm a design engineer, he's a designer. We just thought, let's give it a go. Let's see what we can make. So then we came up with the Paku Toki and the Paku Timor. This is their final form. This is how we're selling them. We have a website which we sell through, and we're trying to get them out to as many whānau in the tamariki as possible. But we've also found that there's also a really great market for our product to go into ECEs and into primary school settings as well. Now, that didn't just come out in this form. There was a lot of research that we went through. You know, Johnson knew that there were items like this, customary tools, but what were they? So we did a lot of research. We went to lots of Māori growing collectives, different Māori organizations, and tried to figure out what was useful, what wasn't, how would they be used. At the same time, we had started making our own versions of those prototypes, knowing that we wanted to make them for tamariki. We started scaling them down, changing the blade widths, making them out of wood or plastics, just whatever we had at hand. And the iterative process, we're going back to our kohangas, our play centres, our kindergartens, our primary schools that our children attended, and getting those children to use the tools. And there was a good year of feedback loops. I mean, it wasn't our full-time job at the time, so we were doing it off just our own backs and our own time. But yeah, those feedback loops took a good year and many iterations. And always the feedback was always just so positive and heartening, just like, wow, of course these should exist. So that really kept us going. Part of that feedback loop, especially going back to the kohangas and ECE centres, were the tools are great and the kids are out there in the sandpits, but then how do we tell them the story about that? And that was the literal feedback we were getting from the kaiko, was how do we tell them the story of these tools, rather than just saying this is a customary Māori tool reinterpreted for you to use. We thought, well, let's literally tell a story. So we also have a small storybook that we have created. It's a boy and a girl, and their koru comes over and he introduces them to the tools. And there's that image at the bottom there where little Tama's saying, oh, I know they're weapons, right, Koro? Look at me, I'm Kripa. He's trying to pretend, what is this thing? And that is actually something that we get quite a lot is, oh, these are weapons. Well, they look like weapons. We're like, well, that brings us back to one of our driving kaupapa, which is, I think the koru says it really well in that image on the bottom right hand. And he says, before our Pākehā tūpuna, I went back one, sorry. Before our Pākehā tūpuna arrived, Māori made everything in our world, made our waka, our whare, kākahu, our tools. So just trying to explain to everyone that Māori did make everything in their world. They weren't warriors, they weren't just explorers, they were inventors of everything. So that's one of the ideas that we're really trying to get across, and getting young children to see themselves in the book and then go out and play with the tools. It's been a really great, there's some connection there where they seem to have much more engagement after the story's being told than the other way around, or if they don't get the story at all. We also get lots of feedback just from different centres of having the kaiko reading books to the children, and then you've seen them out in the tool, and how can they connect that maramataka and mātauranga Māori from the tools to something else. So just something from an Aokuni kindergarten just the other day, they're talking about, they're starting to talk about months and seasons. They're talking about the different mahi they're doing out in the gardens, and connecting it to different atua like Hinimarama. And it's really cool to see that just a small item, that it's not a decoration, it's great that and I think it's just amazing having my kids going through that school process, how well teachers are doing just in that, just introducing te reo, and it's so much increased from when I was a kid, and having my kids go through that, it's amazing. Something else that we introduced to the children at this age and they find quite interesting, especially around matariki. I know we have like a lot of we have shared kai around that time a lot at our different centres, is trying to ask them, well, where do the colours of the tools come from? And that's just another really small way that we try and introduce mātauranga Māori, is just in the colours of the tools and how they relate to kumara, which is a very, very important food source for customary Māori. In a primary setting, we're really lucky that we're working with a charity called OKE, and they work in South Auckland. They're getting school gardens built in South Auckland schools, and they not only do they go in and do working bees to create those, they also have a whole kitty of tools that they leave with the students and with the teachers, and we're really happy that we're part of that. So that's a way. Well, we were surprised how many primary schools are doing that now. I knew it was in ECEs, but seeing how many primary schools are getting those sensory gardens and other gardening, it's really heartening to see that sort of knowledge coming in. And if we can be part of that, we're really happy with it. at this sort of primary age level, we're also starting to talk rāranga. We're talking about the mechanical properties of how we've changed the design. So not only, I mean, the parts are plastic, we get them from a recycled source, which we were happy to save from going to landfill. But just how important we could have made them as a single part, but we wanted to introduce another level of mātauranga, which is around rāranga. And we thought this was a way that we can get children of a younger age into rāranga, where if you wanted to make a traditional toki, you have to have a really good knowledge and really good skill and technicality around doing that lashing. Otherwise, your part won't work at all. But because of the design processes, we've been able to achieve the lashing. It's important to the part. It won't work very well without it, but it can be done to a pretty low level where we have, if you can see in that bottom image, we have a little hole that goes through our Timor, wrap it around. You can do a simple knot and it'll work. The kids are happy that, look what I've made. Another thing we can start introducing is not only just, hey, here was a customary item and now here's a modern version of that, a reinterpretation of that, but also just the little details that we put in. And it was a bit late for the design process and only just made it in, but at the back end of our tool, we have it looks like a carved element and it's a manaya. And manaya sometimes are called like a mythological creature, but really what it is just half of a face, half of a carved face. So you can see on that right-hand side of the screen, you've got different carving styles from different regions, Taranaki, Tuhoi, different ones like that. And then their corresponding manaya. And if you look back to our tool, we had that little hole in there at the top for functional reasons to tie something to it. And we went, well, let's start introducing some of that. So you can see there's the eye and half of the nose as well. So that's Paku in a small nutshell, as much as I can fit into the 5 minutes. Yeah, really appreciate it. And kia ora, thank you very much, Kerry.
Kia ora, Jamie, thank you. Has anyone got any questions you'd like to ask from Jamie before he shoots off? We will send out information on how you can purchase the tools and the books. So Jamie, if you buy the tool, do you automatically get the book or is that a separate purchase?
It's a separate purchase, but we've made it so that as soon as you buy 2 things on the website, so you buy 1 toki or 2 toki, or you buy 1 toki in a book, you automatically get a discount on there. So we understand that purchasing large amounts, we're trying to give more discounts to different places, and you can do it through the website via credit card, and it'll turn up in a day or 2, or just email through, and if your school needs an invoice, then we can do it that way as well. Fantastic.
So everyone will get those links when we're sending out the certificate of attendance for today's session. We'll also be sending out the link then, so you definitely will get the follow-up link, so you'll be able to purchase the product if you want to, or at least you'll be able to, when you're going into schools, you'll be able to talk to your associates about the product and maybe purchase one. The school might purchase one and you'd be able to then use it. Jamie, I'd like to thank you very much for giving up your afternoon to come and talk to us. We really, really do appreciate it. And hopefully you'll be able to come and talk to the TENZ conference and possibly present in one of our Wednesday webinars for teachers. So we have monthly webinars for teachers, and I think it would be really interesting if you had a little bit more time to talk about what you do and why you've done it and things like that. I think it would be awesome.
Cool. Yeah, kia ora, ngā mihi.
Okay, right, moving all on. Wasn't it fantastic? As soon as he started talking with me yesterday, it was like, oh, can you please come tomorrow night and talk to the student teachers, because this is amazing. This is just what technology is all about. So I hope you found it as inspiring as me. Okay, something else that TENZ is doing is we love hearing about things. So if you see anything exciting and you think this teachers need to know about this, please contact TENZ and we will reach out, and just like Jamie, and we'll spread the word. And it's good. We always make sure it's win-win. So it's good for them and it's good for learners and teachers. So one of the things we've been doing with TENZ is working with Engineering New Zealand. They're the people who are hosting today. So they work with us. They're doing all the behind the scenes, which we're very grateful for. I'm a volunteer. I work on the TENZ Council because I'm passionate about technology. I want people to be able to be supported. We're aware we don't have enough time in the hours and the courses for lecturing. And that's just the practicality. There's so much to cover and so little time. So we've developed these sessions for you and hope that they will be useful. Now you've become a member, you can also attend the Wednesday webinars. You'll get information on forums, all sorts of things you'll get access to. One of the things that we do is we work with organisations. So I've been working with the Auckland team of Engineering New Zealand, and they've come up with this really cool competition and they're just piloting it. So it's not, sorry for those of you who are out of region, but this is only the greater Auckland region at this year. Next year, if it's successful, it will roll out everywhere else. So what it is get your children to take a photo of engineering in nature, engineering in the community, or engineering with people. So we don't expect it to be high spec, amazing. It's just get the phone and take some photos. So it's for 5-year-olds right through to adults. And it may be, I don't know, something creative, an old person's hand holding a tap, or a little child's hand holding a toy. Anything that's been designed and engineered, which is, let's face it, is just about everything, is something you could be taking a photo of. So a stormwater drain, go for a walk along the streets, you're going to see street lights, you're going to see street signs, because these things like traffic engineers are a real thing. So there's, a car, there's so many things you could get the students to do. So some of you will be going on practicum, some of you may be on practicum, some of you will have children at home. So this is open to anybody. So all they have to do, take a photo of something to do with engineering and nature, or something to do with engineering and community, something to do with engineering and people, and submit it. It closes on 16th of September, so it's a very short time. But we're hoping we get lots of entries, and then if it's a success, we'll roll it out. And again, we'll put more information about that when we send out the links at the end of today. Okay, so some of you will have attended last week's session and some won't. So I'm going to do a very, very quick recap. You will get access to last week's video file. So if you want more detail, you'll be able to grab that later. Okay, so with the curriculum, you have 3 strands. We always say head, hand, heart. So head is the knowledge strand, the thinking. Then the hands are the practice stands, the doing, the making, which teachers and students love the most. And then there's the heart strand. Now that's really critical for technology. It's thinking about society, the actions, our actions on others, and how technology changes us and how we change technology, how we influence the technology, and how the technology totally changes our lives, and we have control over that. So just because we can do something, should we do it? And all those rich conversations that you can have with students. Those, each one of those strands are broken down into components, and we'll talk more about those later. Okay, hydroponics. So hydroponics is growing plants in water. This is what it looks like in the class as well as industry. Okay, so basically 90% of pathogens are in the soil. So get rid of the soil, you're getting rid of a lot of the diseases. So you don't have to spray as much. The other thing is a plant spends quite a bit of energy putting out roots looking for nutrients. If you give the nutrients straight to the plant, it doesn't have to waste that energy growing big, strong roots. So the roots have two functions. One, to support the plant. And so you've got the stem, you have the soil to support the plant, and then the roots are also gathering nutrients, including oxygen. But with hydroponics, you're not wasting as much energy. The plant grows a lot faster and it can fruit a lot faster. So you need to plant it in something to hold it up. So there's quite a few different types of medium. There's expanded clay. And if you look here, you can see there's little balls or slightly bigger balls. These ones are about the size of, I'm going to say, a small marble. And these ones are more like the size of a small pea. The beauty of expanded clay is you plant your plant in there, it grows, and when you've used your plant, you shake it off and reuse the balls. So the roots aren't going into the expanded clay, and you can just keep reusing, because it's not like soil where if you reuse the soil, it's going to be depleted of nutrients because these are inert. The medium's inert. You can use pumice, perlite, or vermiculite. Those are the ones you often see in the shops. On the roots, you can see that little fluffy, silvery material. That's perlite and vermiculite. Or you can buy grow wool or rock wool. This generally the products we get in New Zealand have come from Australia. What you can do is you get these are in lines and you break off one little cube or square. They're pre-cut, so it's very easy to break them off. They feel like bats material. That's the way they're a bit sort of gritty and they're horrible to touch. So you'd put a bean seed in it, or you could put a cutting, say impatiens fuchsia, anything that grows easily from a cutting, and you put it in there, and then you can put that in water, let it sit. And then when the plant grows bigger and bigger and bigger, you will then put that into another one. It will get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you will put it into another one. So that's all you will have, was just this little container of your grow wool, rock wool, or you could put that into a little yogurt container if you wanted to. Pottles, you can buy them, or you can use yogurt containers if you want, and make sure the hole in the bottom, because you have the flow of the water. Nutrients, you get an A and a B, you put them together, stir it up. There's no exact science because it depends on evaporation, the types of plants you've got, all sorts of things. It's just hit and miss and guess, but you do get better at it. With the plants, you can have seedlings. Some people buy the seedlings and then wash off the dirt because it's a lot faster. You can get kumara, anything that sprouts. And you can put it in water, let it sprout, and then put it in the, say, the rock wool, or you can go straight with the cutting straight into the rock wool. So there's lots of different techniques. I'm going to whiz through these techniques. Surface watering is basically you get your pot plant, you get your plant, and that's got the material and medium in it. You put it in a tray of water, let it soak so the medium gets damp, and then you drain the water out. So when I've done this, I've just made a hole in a container and put a cork in it, something as simple as that. Sub-irrigation is when you put it in, it's sitting in the water for the majority of the time. So you've got to really choose your plants carefully with that one, and you want a tall container because the roots cannot sit in water the whole time. The water, if it's going to be in water, it's got to be aerated, and this is a system that doesn't aerate it. So you'll need a tall container, and you want a shallow rooted plant. So all you want is the medium to be damp at the top around the roots. A wick system, you buy the wick. This is the wick. You fill it with absorbent material, maybe pumice. You soak it so the pumice is wet. You have an ice cream container at the top, make a hole, put the wick through it. And in the bottom ice cream container, you're going to have your water and your nutrient. So the water gets sucked up through the wick and it dampens the top medium. So it's not sitting in there, but it's sucking up that water constantly, keeping the top moist. You can have a grow bag. These are just plastic bags filled with the substrate, the medium, and then you dampen that, put holes in the top for the plant, holes in the bottom. You have to go a little bit above the bottom so it's actually not sitting on the bottom, so on the sides. And that's quite a common way. In England, they use that technique a lot for apartments and things like that, because it contains everything. Drip feed's good. You can buy vinegar, big vinegar bottles. You can get them from the supermarket. You have the top, and then you get tubing irrigation for, you can go to the warehouse. They sell starter kits, which gives you different size tubing, gives you a little tool to puncture holes, very, very easy to do. It gives you a couple of taps, it gives you drippers. So with a starter kit, you could easily set this up yourself. And then all you have to do is you turn on the taps. You can actually turn the tap of the container, the vinegar container at the top, on and off, and that will also stop the flow backwards and forwards. Soak and drain is the same sort of system, but you're going to have the water flowing in, sitting for a while, and then draining out again. And this one on the right is one that I did. So if you've got a bookshelf, you can have a whole lot of these ice cream containers, and the water's going from the top down, 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 down. And each group or each child could have their own, totally up to you. You can have it direct into the medium, or you could have it flowing in and you have your little yogurt containers or your commercial pots in there. Then you've got the Nft system, the nutrient film technique. And this is where water's pretty much constantly flowing through. So you can get an aquarium pump. They're about $30. They're not that expensive. You don't need, because you haven't got a high drop, so you don't need a big fall, you don't need a really powerful one. And it's just going to keep the water recycling. Or you can do it manually. So it's flowing through into the bottom, and then you're going to put it up again at the top and it's going to flow through. So I've got two different systems here. One I used with yogurt containers and the hose, the tubing. And this one I use the containers up here at the top. And this is core flute, which is real estate agent sign. And then I just got PET bottles, cut them in half and put tube from one to the other and then into the other. And then I cut more core flute and made a little, and hot glued the side on it as a stand, and then just put yogurt containers with with this one. I think I had cos lettuce in there, and it lasted. It was brilliant. We were eating it, so it was great. Okay, so this again, here's one hanging, similar technique to the previous one I talked about. Here's a commercial one, and here is the industry settings. Whirlwind. Okay, I will also, I've got this in detailed notes, which I'm going to email out to all of you, but we're also going to get it designed a bit better. So there'll be an earlier version, and then there'll be a second revamped version. Okay, the other thing now we're going to move on to is today's session. So last time just at the end of the session, we talked about the importance of scenarios. And so basically with students, you're going to, rather than just telling them exactly what they're going to make, you're going to give them a problem. So you're going to develop an authentic scenario. Often this is driven by the school scheme or whatever's going to be done for that unit topic or series of work. So it may be in a primary setting, it may be for this term, everyone's doing sustainability. Or if you're working with some of your junior children in secondary, it may be that you're working with another discipline. And so you've got to share it. And so often things like sustainability have common threads coming across. So you can do a bit and I'll do a bit and we'll all come together. So it's sort of STEM in action. So if you're doing a topic for sustainability, so say your senior teacher said, okay, our topic for the term is sustainability. You may think, I could do food, I could do waste, I could do water. And then if you're thinking, okay, with food, what would be the scenario that we're going to give the children? And the scenario could be, how do we use our excess fruit? So we've got lots of lemons, or we've got lots of feijoas, lots of apricots, depending on where you live in the country. And so what can we do with it? So that would be what you would pose the students. And in the back of your mind, you would have thought they probably will want to think about, they could do a community pantry, they could do bottling and preserving, they could make fruit leathers that they sell at the school canteen, they could make them into ice blocks, they could make them for the gala and sell them, they could give them away to an early childhood centre, they could make a cookbook on how to, with recipes on how to use excess fruit. So there's the one problem, but there's multiple solutions. And that's what you're after. You don't want everyone making ice blocks and we're all going to make ice blocks with our excess oranges or feijoas. And really, they're not doing a lot of innovation and creativity. Okay, so that's what you're trying to encourage. But you've also got to be practical and you've got to manage it. So it is a trade-off. Okay. So last time what we did was we thought about some scenarios. So what I'd like you to do is think about in groups, or actually we could do that now. If you could, let's see, if you could, I'm going to try this because it's not quite what I thought, but can Bernie, can you put into the chat the scenarios? Have you got the link for slides? It's either 17 or 18.
On there now, Kerry.
Thank you. So if you go into the chat, you should get a link. And from that link, it will take you. So can you see that now?
Yeah, nice and clear.
Okay. So this is a resource. And so what we'll do is, if you come up with a scenario for one of the things, hydroponics, growing things, sustainability, beautification of your school or your community, eating something that we actually are growing or producing, or sharing our work, our mahi, if you come up with a realistic scenario, work out what tech area it might be, what level, write the authentic context, and then just describe it in a little bit more detail. So for this one, you would put in growing things, and then your description is the scenario you're going to give the students. TENZ will collate all of that. They also will collate the people who did it last week. I'm getting some of my classes to do it. Some other lecturers are doing it around New Zealand. Teachers have been offered a competition to add their ideas to this. So this is a live growing document, and you will get access to it at the end of today. Once we've collated it all, you'll get the link, and then you'll be able to share everyone else's ideas who were on today and other people who have done this. It will also be a resource that you can go back to for authentic scenarios that you can do in your school. So if you could think about one of your a scenario and jump on that link and fill it out. So that is thinking about hydroponics, growing things, an aspect of sustainability. One of those, choose a scenario. What would you ask the children to do? Remembering, you're not saying everybody is going to make A, you're going to give them a problem. And that's actually really hard to do. So why do they want to do beautification? Why do they want to? eat what we produce? What are you going to tell them to get them hooked in? So just for 5 minutes, if you can do that and share it onto that doc. Okay, just another minute. Okay, one more minute and we're going to stop. Okay, has anyone got any ideas that they wanted to share? Okay, we'll move on. I'm really excited about seeing them. And as I say, I will share them back with you because it's this living document. Okay, so last time we said if the students are going to develop a hydroponic unit, there's a whole lot of things we need to know. So we brainstormed. So this is the brainstorm we came up with last week. And I color coded it so you could see the difference. So everyone jumped on. This was a Google sheet. They jumped on and they added knowledge that they thought, yes, some knowledge, equipment, these were things. So there was some knowledge that the student and the teacher, there was science knowledge, e.g. the life cycle of a plant. There was technological knowledge, like systems, learning about different systems. There's characteristics of technology, learning about existing ways of doing it so you can improve. Technological products, so they're component technological products, which is actually about materials. It's always confusing. So the component called technological products means you look at materials and decide what's the best one, how do you join them? So in this case, it would be looking at what's absorbent, what's inert. The nature of technology is the societal one, thinking about the people, the values, the cultures, community experts, linking in with the community. So there was a question about that. And then you've got the interdisciplinary knowledge. So you can see there was a lot that people brainstormed. And you can start seeing it's starting to get quite broad. Okay, so now what I'd like us to do is brainstorm a series of activities for the scenario. How can we create an inside garden for our local kindy? So for me, one of the schools I was at, we didn't have a fence at that time and gardens got ripped up on a regular basis. So the kids loved growing things inside because it actually meant that they saw the plant grow and actually were able to see it flower or able to use it, whereas if it was outside, it tended to get destroyed. So if that's the scenario, we're going to grow stuff inside, plants inside for the local kindy. What I'd like us to do is just get into groups. And we need to list all the things that our students are going to need to do and then order them. So basically you're coming up with a unit, a series of activities. And we're just going to do, for 10 minutes, we're going to quickly come up with a series of activities that if you're doing hydroponics with your students, what are you going to have to plan for? What are the activities? What are they going to have to think about? Okay, so what I'd like us to do is get into groups for just 5-10 minutes. So Bernie, can you help us get into groups, please?
Yep. If you just want to tell them instructions first, and then we'll go into breakout rooms.
Okay, so in your groups, you're going to go into a Google when you click on the chat. So Bernie will put in a chat. You're going to go into that link, and then in your group, you will start then thinking about what your students are going to do for that scenario. Growing plants inside for the kindy. If I was doing this with my class, I would have to do this. The students would do this. Then we'd do this. We could do this. We could do that. They've got to know this. And you're just going to list all the things that you're going to do with the students.
Is this for like the kindy students are not going to do this? It's the primary or secondary students are doing it for the kindy.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, we're going to gift it to them.
Okay.
Awesome. And with that, I'll chuck you into your breakout rooms, and we'll be going back in here in around 2 minutes.
Ooh.
recording this. Getting in that last minute conversations, I see.
They had great ideas. They really did. Both groups had really good ideas.
Oh, great stuff. That's what you want in these sessions.
Mm.
Awesome. And with that, I believe we've got everyone back in the room, Kerry.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, kia ora everyone. You had amazing ideas. It was really, really neat. So hopefully you can see the process of you dump ideas, and in dumping the ideas, then you start thinking about, oh, we've all got to think about that, and we've all got to think about that. And then you start needing to order, well, actually, before they do that, we've got to get them thinking about that. So I think that pretty much was happening in the groups. So thank you for participating in that. And I think I will use a different technique next time because it was a little bit hard for you to record some of your ideas. Okay, I'm very cognizant of time, so I'm going to whip through. Okay, so as we said, we've got strands, then we've got components, and then each component has achievement objective, and the achievement objective is unpacked with indicators of progression. So you find these you go to TKI, go into technology, you then click on the second tab along, which is the New Zealand curriculum. Down the left-hand side, that's where you find the indicators. So there's lots of different ways you can view the indicators. You can view each one. If you're sort of thinking, oh, I'm only going to do brief development, then you can click on that and you'll get the indicators for brief development. You can get all of them. You can think, oh, I'm working at level 2, so you can get all of the level 2s. There's lots of multiple ways you can view them, and this is the page that you would get that. So this is one of the ways you can view them. You've got the strands along the top. Each of these strands are broken down into components. So that's nature because there's 2. That's knowledge, there's 3, and that's practice, there's 3. And then you've got the achievement objectives. And then here's the teacher guidance, and these are unpacked by the indicators. To find the progression diagrams, they're down the bottom here. So if you look at the progression diagrams, those of you who are from Auckland, we will have done this, some of this may have in class, depending on what year level you are. So if we're looking at brief development, if you can't read that with my bad eyes, I can't. The first one here says communicate the outcome to be developed. That then is built on that, and then they're meant to explain the outcome to be produced, sorry. Communicate the outcome to be produced, explain the outcome to be produced. Now, the reason I chose this is the planning you've just done, hopefully you can see, you probably would have got the students to think, what are we going to make? And then they need to articulate what they're going to make. So that's the brief development. They have to understand what they're going to make and who it's for and the criteria. The planning for practice, remembering this is the doing, this strand we're going through are the 3 components of the practice strand. So it's practice is the hands-on, the doing, it's brief development, planning for practice, outcome development and evaluation. So brief development was the previous one where you've got to understand the problem. With this one, planning for practice, level 1 is identify what they will do next. And then building on that, identify key stages required to produce an outcome. So with your littlies, you're going to say, we're going to do this, and then what will we do? With your other one, when you're getting to level 2, you're then going to be saying, what are the key stages that we need to produce it? And then level 3, explain progress to date in terms of meeting key stages and use of resources, and discuss implications of what they need to do next. And then that links in with this indicator here. So the first one is identify what they'll do next. And this one is identify key materials, components, software they might use. So what are they going to do and what are they going to need? Now, I bet you got in your plan, you probably already had that. So when you were thinking, oh, we'll get the kids to think about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, that's one of these components. So it's not an add-on. If you're planning your unit, you can then pick up these progression diagrams and think, oh, I'm covering that, I'm covering that, I'm covering that. I'll assess that. When they do that task, that worksheet, or however they're going to do it, that's what I'll use as assessment. So it's not going to be an add-on, a big deal. You're going to plan a really nice lesson that flows beautifully, and then you're going to see what are the logical points that meet these indicators. Now, some people do it the other way around. They come up with activities that meet these indicators, but if you're not careful, it's not a natural, nice flowing lesson. It's just a series of a whole lot of disjointed activities. So that's why a lot of us feel plan an activity and then see which indicator links really well. So outcome development and evaluation is the biggest component, and it's when they actually do and make. So they're going to describe potential outcomes through drawings. So they're probably going to need that. Then they're going to identify the outcomes, keeping with the attributes, select one to make, and then they're going to produce it. So that's only at level 1, moving on. If this child can't do this, you're going to take them back and help them here to help them move on. Okay. We're just running out of time now. Has anyone got any questions they'd like to ask before we finish? Okay. Kia amato, kata kia mutu mato amato mahi, me kaupapa hoki, arahina mato, ka amato mahi ano, kia whakatapua mato, kia nā kaupapa, mena mea whakapono, manakitia mai mato. This closing karakia was written for us by one of our council members as a way of tying up the lesson. So I would really like to thank Brian. He's a student from Canterbury University who's volunteered to be a student rep from his university and help student teachers, so a student for student. So if any of you also want to represent your university and be a student rep on the council and help out in situations like this, or maybe you've got lots of ideas of other things we can do, we would love to hear from you. Bernie, thank you very much. ENZ, we can't thank you enough for all the support you are giving our teachers and our student teachers and the future engineers and the future technologists of tomorrow. I hope you have a safe travel home, a lovely evening with your family and friends. Wish you well, and hopefully I'll see you next session, and all the best.
Thanks, Kerry.